Next in Gaza show with William here on the Investigator News 2 network, hosted by himself, William, and Ellie. And, it's the 16th of October here on a Monday, and I wonder if there's been an October surprise yet. Yet there has in the year of our Lord 2022. So, hi Ellie, how are you?
Good. And I was thinking about last week. I put with we know what's going to happen in Gaza. We just know. And what happens next? And so I called William today, and boy, he talked my ear off for about 45 minutes on this. And so, William, I want you to give me your perspective of what's next and what would be best for Gaza, because we got to think about this, folks.
What happens next, as far as Israel's concerned, is they want to destroy Gaza as a fighting force and then destroy Gaza as a governing force. So, Hamas, not Gaza, but Hamas. So, how was Hamas born in the first place? So we got to think back, right, to the Battle PLO days, Palestinian Liberation Organization with Yasser Arafat, and they needed a different kind of government to take pressure off the Israelis back then. So Israel came up with this idea for a new political party, and its name was Hamas. Well, now the monster's grown outside of all proportions, and here we are. So are we going to end up doing this once again over and over spiral, where we create something, it gets out of hand, and we end up right back again in the same place, except with a different name? What do we do to solve this? So I'm not as interested in what's about to happen. Though, from a humanitarian standpoint, it looks awful. All right. But I'm a lot more interested personally in where we end up when this is over. Are we going to have the same fence? Are we going to have the exact same border? Are we going to have the same exact situation? Are we going to depend on technology only to be outclassed without technology? What is Israel going to do? And the other part of it is, why now? Why is this happening now? Is this just a part of United States being what they call the unipolar world, and now they want a multipolar world, the powers that be, wherever they may be, the Club of Rome and that bunch? Or do they not want a multipolar world, and they want to create a new unipolar world with, let's say, the EU as the new United States? So we would call it, I don't know, USE. Anyway, none of this makes sense. I'm hearing from all kinds of neocons, warmongers, whatever you want to call them. And I even heard from Senator McConnell. Let me jump back here to my notes, please. I have notes, Ellie. So he says that America must, McConnell, on the Senate floor, America must reaffirm its commitment to Israel. Must? Okay, I get it. Israel's in trouble. And Israel's been our lily pad, if you want to call it, in the Middle East. They're our best friend in the Middle East. So we should support our friends, as they support us. But isn't must. We have 29 Americans dead and must find out who killed them. Isn't it that we have a possible 9 or 19 American hostages and must get to them quickly? Sometimes folks lose their way. They get locked in the global power dynamic. I don't know what to call it. A global power dynamic college or a echo chamber or what, but we need to be looking outside of this situation and making sure that we don't have to relive it and that vast numbers of people don't need to pass away for no particular good reason. Speaking of which, the power dynamics of the world, Dr. Paul, Rand Paul's father, states that Biden has now come out on television, I saw the clip, saying the United States has an obligation to be involved in Ukraine and Israel. Obligation. I'm seeing a drift. I'm seeing a drift in our reasons to be where we are. Now, if Biden is saying we have an obligation to be involved in Ukraine and Russia, does that include Benjamin Netanyahu's forthcoming visit to Russia or China on the Belt and Road conference or Southwest Asia, Middle East for us? And why would, well, I guess Netanyahu might go there just to gather information. I mean, we don't know for sure. But I know that a lot of Belt and Road Initiative countries are having buyer's remorse. I mean, they get in and it hasn't worked out too great. All right, let's move on to our friends over at.
Well, William, the thing is we were talking a wall that's got to be built between the two.
So would they have a wall and a fence? Depends on where you're at, but basically a barrier, right? But both sides can walk right up to that barrier. And I think that's the problem. And the barrier has gates, and that's the other problem. So North Korea and South Korea have the same problem, believe it or not.
Yes.
One has one ideology, the other has another ideology. One has one creation story, the other has a different creation story.
Mm-hmm.
And they're intractable. There's no, can we get along? Can we be friends? Can we share postcards? No, they've got a demilitarized zone. They've got a space between each country, right? And if either one, South Korea or North Korea, because it benefits both sides, if individuals move out into that demilitarized zone, it's a free fire zone, meaning that the soldiers on each side have a mandate to kill whoever's in that zone.
So my question to the chat, hold on.
So that's
William, hold
when
on.
you go into that.
William, hold on. So the question to the chat and people watching tonight, is this going to turn into like what North Korea and South Korea have? And it might be the best way to do this, because we're never going to get Hamas or angry Palestinians to like Israelis. We're not going to get Israelis to like Hamas or Palestinians. They'll help the Palestinians that seek help, but for those that are going to dance in the street, death to America, death to Israel, we're never going to change their minds. Never. It's like North Korea, we're never going to change their minds. It's a little different, though. So go ahead. I hope I didn't make you lose your train of thought.
Well, the idea behind this is that you don't have people that are inextricably have the desire to remove each other, which one side does. And then on the other side, you've got the Israelis that have tried to govern this out of control area that's called Hamas, which creates a whole bunch of animosity.
Uh-huh.
So if Hamas was allowed to just govern itself, just not have access to Israel or have the capacity to attack Israel, wouldn't they live in greater peace? And if you have that demilitarized zone, it's far easier to ensure that nobody's crossing it, because there's not a question of, well, are they just being menacing? Are they just trying to irritate us today? Are they just going to throw rocks? What's the thing today? Kites, balloons? See, none of that matters at that point, because it travels across the demilitarized zone. You just simply remove it, whatever it is or whoever it is. If it's Israel's heading towards, Gaza side, they have the same option, right? It's equality. And that's the best you can give these folks, is the right to live their lives without being condemned by each other. I don't know of anything else that can be done in the foreseeable future that's not going to create another situation like is what's happening now. Now, if Gaza and Hamas decide to fire rockets, well, Israel has the right to, take out the place the rockets fly from. That's fair, but the people aren't mixing. There's not additional animosities being created. It's obvious that if you see rockets going up, you're going to see, bombs coming down. That's not like a surprise for anybody. That's not like a shock to the system. Everybody gets that as just, kind of
what gets me,
fair.
William, is right now they're using their own people as shields and they're not letting them leave. I mean, if you're going to be bombed, you're going to be bombed. You're going to go over the border, you're going to stay, and then you're going to go home and pick up the pieces and still hate Israel. The thing is they're not even letting their own people that support them leave.
In North Vietnam, we went to help out some folks called the South Vietnamese fight off the communists.
Mm-hmm.
And the communists knew that they were outclassed on the battlefield. So they had to resort to other behaviors, like creating an underground army called the Viet Cong. Also, they would use nursery baskets with babies in them as booby trap explosive devices. point is I'm trying to tell you is, anytime a military force sees themselves in a situation that they can't surmount technologically, they will do it socially. So am I saying that what they're doing is okay? No, I'm not saying that at all. I'm just saying that that has happened in the world in the past. And this is kind of a difficult talk too, is in the past, countries that are willing to sacrifice their children, even though the other side has greater manpower and technology, tend to win. So that might be an important lesson as well.
And it's because there has to be, there's going to be a end. There's going to be, like we talked about, prisoner swaps, because this is what we're looking at now is be able to get our prisoners back, and at the same time try to eliminate Hamas. Now we got Lebanon that's interfering. Now even Iran, Pakistan, a few others are saying, Hezbollah needs to not get involved in this. Now we had Iran say they're going to jump in, Syria's going to jump in, but now they're changing their tone a little bit. They're now saying,
right, now they're
I
just
think
saying,
they're looking
well,
at the end plan, William, because there's got to be something that we got to do with the Palestinians after this that hate Israel. We just can't blow them all up.
Right. So the Palestinians need to have a fast and clear border so that they don't have to worry about incursions. They don't have to worry about somebody coming and taking their land or building kibbutzes on their land or whatever. It has to be a solid demarcation. Same thing in the West Bank. You can't expect governments to function if they don't have control over their own autonomy. And that's what's happening. Now the West Bank, they're going to do their trading, I guess, with Transjordan, the Jordan people, right? King Abdullah's folks, they're in the Hashemite kingdom of Jordan, who, by the way, King Abdullah has been a very stable region in the Middle East, where all the other factions can't decide whether or not to fight or not. He has accepted refugees and a bit of peace and stability for those who have come from war-torn areas. So I'd like to thank Jordan for that. But there needs to be an idea of where we go after this. Otherwise, we can't plan where we want to go into this, right? How do you move forward if you don't know where you want to go? Well, the first thing is you need to look back and see where you've been. And you need to look at it not from an emotional standpoint, but just from cold, hard facts, right? What has and what has not worked. Well, what hasn't worked is what hasn't worked. It's been tried. It's time to move on. Now, as far as the United States getting involved in the area, I can see the United States getting very involved in trying to recover our people, right? An innocent American attacked anywhere is an American attacked everywhere. It's one of the basic tenets of America that we are governed by the people, for the people, and if the people are being threatened or harmed out in the world, we move together as, these United States, not some of our states or when we're states or all of us. We care for each other. We protect each other. We maintain our laws. Right. Everybody gets the idea. So I'm sure the Jewish people feel the same, but what's going to go on in Gaza, unfortunately, and this is just, William being kind of the jaded observer that I am, they're going to both have Hamas rooted out, and the people of Gaza are going to be punished for this. They want to make this so painful that there needs to be a change so we don't go back to this. Now, Gaza is fighting their war on the stage of PR out in the global world. That's how they're assaulting Israel right now. Israel has the firepower. Gaza, if you will, has the mouth and the ear of the United Nations and supporters all over the world. Yeah, I guess that is what it is. But Israel has to live next door. We're on the other side of the planet. Now, Israelis and Palestinians here in the United States, you know, they can get along. They're both in the extreme minority. Nothing they do or say with each other is going to matter one way or the other in this country. So, you know, why not just get along? Why not just be friends? So they can be here, but they can't be there.
Now, the other thing,
why is that?
the other thing I'm thinking about is these tunnels. They have doubled since they were last seen by Israelis troops, and they're very sophisticated network of tunnels. Now they've been able to do these tunnels since 2007, so you can imagine the tunneling they've been doing since then. And
you know what a breaching device is?
Huh.
So they shoot out a rocket with this rope behind it, and this rope wrapped around it, it has plastic explosives. I don't know, it's like 174 pounds of this stuff. So once the folks go in to Gaza, they're going to drag those ropes throughout those tunnels.
Yeah.
And if your house is on top, it's going to be a bad day.
Oh yeah. Well, these are they say 360 square kilometers. They have it all the way through to Egypt. And not only that, but there's another one all the way to a bridge called the Peace Bridge. It reaches to Sinai Peninsula. So that tells you that they have got a massive tunnel system. And this has got rails, it's got lights. It's almost like the cartels, where they have a way to get through. They can get small, I don't know what, carts, mining carts through them, and a massive amount of soldiers to where we were seeing Karen Moore. I think I did a report that they were coming up through manhole covers in the middle of Israel. And
right.
So
that's another reason why they need to have a DMZ, because on either side of the DMZ you have walls. You don't have like fences so you can see each other.
Yeah, and they say there's
a side of the wall.
There is
side of your wall.
And the thing with the tunnels is there is a 4-minute escape to get out of the tunnels if they decide to blow them up. Now, I know you mentioned they were blowing up the tunnels when we were on the phone.
Right. Right now they're using basically 2,000 pounders. If they spot a tunnel, they just blow up a moon crater over it and basically collapse it, crush it. If you hit a tunnel with enough kinetic energy, even if you don't collapse the tunnel completely, you'll collapse the tunnel someplace, and whoever's in that tunnel will die just from the sheer shock coming through the ground. It will disturb their organs to the point they can no longer live. So if you're in a tunnel, doesn't make you safe.
Mm-mm.
If you're in a bunker, doesn't make you safe. You know, we got guys in Vietnam, we built bunkers and just had, you know, light artillery come in on top of them and hit the top of their hardened bunker, and the concussion was enough that it bounced them off the floor, smacked their head on the ceilings, you know, almost breaking their necks, and knocked their ears out so they couldn't hear. And then they would have concussions. That's just a light charge. Could you imagine something heavy nearby?
And
So
the president even
people-
mentioned they have to get rid of these tunnels.
people who believe there's safety in tunnels are deluding themselves. All there is concealment in tunnels. Because once the tunnels are found, once they know where the tunnels are, they can hit them. Now, the United States does not need to go into Gaza to find the tunnels. We have sensors, all right, airborne sensors that can spot things down hundreds of thousands of feet to even find oil. Tunnels, they're easy. So we have hostages in Gaza right now, and we're finding their tunnels. What do you think is going to happen next?
Yeah.
So this is really a losing situation for the people of Gaza.
Mm-hmm.
It's such a losing situation that even Iran has decided to change their tone to, they're calling for solidarity rather than, you know, action. And who's involved with this? Of course, we've got Israel, Hamas, Fatah, Hezbollah, Iran, and Israel, right? These are the players.
ISIS.
There has to be some sort of an accommodation. Now, we're not going to change Iran whatsoever.
Mm-mm.
Iran is what Iran is. They are a country who has decided that the rest of the world will follow their party of God into the greater New Persia, whether desiring to or kicking and screaming, they don't care. And if you look at the threats to the world right now, you've got what? China's number one, greatest threat on the planet. Russia is number two. Iran shows up as, guess what? Number three.
Mm-hmm.
Now, North Korea could have showed up as number three, but North Korea isn't that crazy. Crazy, yeah, but not that crazy. Then you have number four, which is really all the royals of the minor nations. The very second Iran has the ability to trigger a uranium explosive, they go from number three to number two in a heartbeat.
Mm-hmm. Now, you know what gets me though, William, is
you can imagine their danger.
China has condemned Israel for going after Hamas and Muslims, but at the same time, they're killing Muslims in their own country, but putting Israel down for it. I don't know if you've seen that one.
So, just like Iran has a vested stake in the United States, they call Iran the little Satan and the United States the great Satan. China thinks the exact same thing. They're not our friends. They are allies because they believe the same thing. Now, Russia's an ally because they're stuck in a war, holding back ideological West. But Iran and Beijing, that's not the case at all. They have the exact same motivations. Mm-hmm. Now, Russia just wants to be left to be Christian Russia with some kind of an economy. They don't want to necessarily be part of a greater BRICS thing if they don't have to be, right? If they're forced to, yeah, because the West won't tolerate them in any other way and they have to survive, they will. They'll do what they have to do to survive as a people. But they have more in common with us than they don't. Whereas Iran and China has really nothing in common with us.
Yeah. Yep.
Okay, so what do we do with Gaza? Is two walls that neither one can see over, right? Must have solid, substantial, strong, powerful walls. The next thing to do is, in Israel, can't build right up to their wall. They have to have a corridor with which they can mine near their wall to cut any of the tunnels. And they can't pipe anything out through Gaza, because anytime there's an intersecting water source or piping or sewer line or drain or anything like that, yeah, there's going to be infiltration.
Yes.
So that must be absolutely cut. Then the two sides can live in relative peace. If Gaza wants to destroy itself with bad governance and wasting their money on arms that they can't do anything about hurting Israel with, fine. Live in abject misery and poverty. And Israel, on the other hand, won't have to expend the amounts of money they are now in their defense, because their defense becomes much more easy, manageable. If they have to deal with Gaza, it's by aircraft, right? So I see that as the outcome. It's kind of, really it's kind of like the outcome we see with Russia and the West in Ukraine. They want a buffer zone between themselves and the ideological West. They don't want NATO on their doorstep. NATO is basically the EU, all right? It's not the United States, it's the EU. And the EU wags the dog. The dog is, the United States. We're the big fist, and they're the brains part of the operation. And we've allowed ourselves to be used. I don't think we have any we don't have a reason to be the greatest contributor to the Ukrainian war. That's the EU. They have more to lose if this thing goes south in the United States.
They've been talking with the progression of Russia that the war could end in the next couple of weeks in Ukraine.
If Zelensky finds that he will not have the weaponry to continue a robust defense and possibly offense, he's going to have to make peace if he wants to survive. Now, is it going to stop right at the lines where they are right now? Not likely. Ukraine has probably overshot that runway a bit, and they're going to crash into overrun and lose everything right up to the Dnipro River, right? Because that's the big geographical dividing line where armies can dig in and create defense in depth and not have to be under trench warfare situations, right? In a constant meat grinder. It's really difficult to go across a river with the military if the other side has the high ground. And when you have a river valley, both sides have the high ground.
And you know, William, what's been put forward, I mean, quite a few times that I've seen, is when the war is over, Poland thinks that they need to move in and be able to take care of Ukraine. So it would be Poland moving into Ukraine, almost doing the same thing as Russia just did. But they'll have the help from Poland.
You have to remember that for millennia, the royals, right? Royalty have been fighting each other over lands and titles. And Poland, if Poland doesn't jump forward, they're afraid Hungary will. If Hungary doesn't jump forward, they're afraid Romania will. If Ukraine is going to stay intact, it will require the intervention of the United States.
Mm-hmm. The United States got quite a bit of interest.
I believe we have a place there, right?
Mm-hmm.
Diplomatically, and if we have to, pile up on the border and protect Ukraine temporarily. And I don't think even Russia will care as long as we're pointing outward, not inward. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Well, history shows when Russia attacks Ukraine, they run to Poland and Germany. When Poland and Germany decide they're going to take over Ukraine, they run back to Russia. It's a never-ending historical battle with Ukraine not being able to sustain itself because of oligarchs and corruptions.
Just like Poland's run to Belarus, and they've had, northern Germany. It's been a back and forth squabble even between Germany and Austria, Czechoslovakia. Then you have the Czech Republic, and now you've got Kosovo and what's the other one? Anyway, we just had a war with them to stop them from fighting. They're in Sarajevo. This has been the history of Europe forever. And it's royals wanting the power over the people and lands so that they can maintain their hegemony. If you look in these governments and who controls the administration of them, they're royals. If you look at the military and who the generals are, who are they? They're the royals. These people look out for themselves. It's not easy to keep a yacht that you can roll into cans in so you can keep up with the other royals, right? Because that's what that's about. The big, when they have the big movie releases and everybody comes in and they have the big fashion shows and everybody comes in, that's where royals come in and check out royals, see who's doing the best and where they can find advantage. And they don't share this with the rest of the EU.
No, because they have them private meetings.
Right. They have their
the leaders of the globe, and I'm surprised they're really listening to world economics, because they have had meetings like Bilderberg and Bohemian Grove. They got one over there in Europe, as well as one over here in the United States. So they're having private meetings with all these leaders to decide what they're going to do. Now, they know way in advance what they're going to do before all these wars. And, you mentioned that Israel and quite a few others knew that this was going to happen. Now, I knew because I've seen it building up.
hey, the CIA knew this was going to happen. So did they, having Israel's back, did they warn Israel? Okay, Mossad knew this was going to happen. Did they warn the United States this was about to happen? Or did they all quietly go and, change their investments to make the most money, acting like the royals do in Europe?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Well, the proof is in the pudding.
And when we look at it of leadership, then you said the CIA knew about it. Well, who put the CIA together? None other than Papa Bush. And then, so who is directing this, if not world economics? Because that's just trying to bring the whole global green.
Well, let's look at what's happened since this thing has started with Israel. So we've had this blowout in the House, right, over leadership.
Uh-huh.
Okay, that happened just before, and then this thing with Gaza. Well, what have been the big announcements this week? So you've got this guy Romney, right? And he's of the House of Windsor. He's a royal from Europe, his family.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And Oprah Winfrey wants to run a ticket with him as a unity party for president. Why? Where did that come from? Or Jordan and Scalise are having a problem working out who's going to be in charge of the House. And so what did somebody come up with the other day? Well, let's put, what's his name? Jorge Bush George Bush is Speaker of the House. Gee, that seems opportune, doesn't it? Oh, at the same time, the central bank wants to do digital currency when nobody's watching.
And what about this guy that has been the one that worked the deal, Bob Malley? I probably got his name wrong. That has been working this deal with Iran since Obama. That he was supposed to be working on getting Iran to agree with the United States, but then he worked out this $6 billion payout. Now they say, oh well, it would have been 10.
So James Malley has been involved with the State Department, goes all the way back as long as Mr. Blinken, and Mr. Blinken is a protege of James Malley. They went to high school together in France. Okay, I think it was a boarding school, perhaps. But anyway, they graduated together, and in one way or another, they've looked after each other all these years. They were good friends. Well, this Malley guy decides to start putting Iranian spies, if you will, placing them in the State Department at the same time when they were negotiating the last times they had the JCPOA under Obama. They were sending pallets full of cash, and this guy always shows up next to Kerry, and Kerry's always next to Blinken,
and Blinken has
seems like
been friends. Now get this, Blinken has been friends with the Biden family since he was a senator, or before.
Oh yeah, well, Biden's, the Clintons, these people have all had tentacles into state. They've all had tentacles into the agency. They have tentacles into the market. They're everywhere. Mostly foreign policy, right? And they've found ways to make a living.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're a relativist, there's no particular moral imperative. Let's look at the world from that point. You have no moral imperative.
And Hillary was the first to take down William. Hillary was the first through the, it was even before the State Department. It was when she became First Lady, took out everybody that was in foreign affairs and put her own people in there.
Of course. Yeah. It is what it is. And you have a Democrat Congress, House, and State Department, and if you will, CIA, that has been run occasionally by Republicans, and the Republicans that should be the opposition to them, the checking group, always seems to at the last minute cave in and apologize for the Democrats, and it's the Democrats don't know what they're doing, and they're making mistakes. Bull crap. They know exactly what they're doing, kids. And the Republicans are letting them get away with it. Yeah. Let's just be honest, right? So you have a global party. You have people that are more interested in the United States. Some are more wed to the Constitution. Some are more wed to moralities. Others are less. And let's face it, attorneys are relativists, right? You walk into a courtroom, you find your argument, the best part of your argument, and then you win. Whether you're right or wrong, it doesn't matter. You give a zealous prosecution or a zealous defense, and based on the merits, you win or lose. That's the way that works. But that's absolute relativism. Now, these are all politicians in Congress. How does that work? How's that going to work for the people? So what does win mean when you're in Congress? We're having to, because luckily this thing happened with the internet, information spilled out. We're having to look at the world for what it is rather than what we thought it was now. We're having to make some judgment calls, which is, kind of what this program's all about, is knowing what's happening around us and seeing it for what it is rather than for what we want it to be. Because you can't fix things if you're trying to fix what you want it to be, and it never was and it never will. You have to meet people where they are. All right, let's move on. If we're going to keep doing this stuff next to land like this, we really need to get ourselves 3 nuclear fueled battleships. Here's why. We send these aircraft carriers, right? They're multi-million dollars. We have state-of-the-art direction finding, smart bombs. They can take off with all these attack aircraft. That's great, but it's really, really expensive when we could just pull up, a battleship, turn 9 guns the direction, and go to work. It would be a lot less expensive. Just saying.
So okay. During the nuclear war, they hit up our, I think it's PayPaws, and they send the submarines in with the nuclears. You're right. We need them on our carriers to be able to do exactly what the submarines can do. We can't have just submarines.
If we want to land troops, if we want to punish a group, right, that's holding our people hostages, and if most of the land around the United States, most of the population is near the coast, we need to have a capacity to bombard a coast. That's just the province of 16-inch guns. It's not the province of little airplanes. Sorry. That's just my thought on it, but that's just me. Okay. I think I've made my pitch for the 1-state or 2-state situation in Israel. I think it's a 2-state situation. There's no possibility of a single state or a state next to a state on good terms. All right, what do we got here? Next, yeah. So, you guys heard of the Club of Rome, right? And then it led to this thing called Klaus's organization, the World Economic Forum. And then from the World Economic Forum, we ended up with this project for the new American century. Like the old American century wasn't good enough, you know, like Americans in charge of Americans. No. And then we end up with this whole climate and just, you name it. It's all a power grab. Let's move on. Great. Klaus hijacked the Club of Rome, you know, the Vatican Bank that wanted to be bigger than the Bank of London, blah, blah, blah. It's always the same thing, world control. We have to get these people out of the country. It's time for the United Nations to move to some island like Bermuda. Seriously. Get them offshore. There's no reason to have all these dignitaries from all over the world in the United States. None of them have any concern or desire to help the United States. They sponge off the endless resources of the United States. It's time to move them out of the United States and to bring them into New York of all places, the financial hub of the United States. No, it's time for the United Nations to go offshore. Doesn't need to go to Italy, doesn't need to go to Sudan. It could just go to an island someplace, but it's time for all these dignitaries that want to, you know, rub each other's back. Fine, rub each other's back. Just, we don't want to watch anymore. That's my theory. I'm sticking to it. Neocons. Forever war. We don't need neocons with their global community, new world, climate, order, green, gobbledygook, give me your money, your property, the right to your life, and natural resources because you owe it to us. Sorry, no. Doesn't work with me. Maybe it works with others. All right. We could start looking at the history and the ethics of the Israel-Palestine conflict. Have we looked at the full history and ethics of the Ukrainian, German-Russian conflict? My point is, if we don't look at this stuff, we're not going to know what to do in the future. We're not going to know the amount of animosity these folks have towards each other. We're not going to be able to make salient decisions based on that. Oh. Wait. Hold on. United Nations Relief Agency, they're going to need some more money. So, you know who's going to have to come to the aid of the United Nations with money to pay for this United Nations Relief Agency for Gaza. So, crack open your wallets. That's where it's going to come from. Another situation that we have is, you know, the United States isn't really favorable towards communists. I think you guys have all found out. And Marxists. But you know what a kibbutz is, Ellie?
Huh.
It's a commune where the entire group has votes on what they do. They don't have a mayor. They don't have a police officer. They don't have security. They just, you know, commune, right? Do everything together. Well, it's great. That's just great. Until there's a bunch of people that want to kill them. How's that working out for y'all? Just saying, communism ain't that great of an idea. And where do these folks come from? Where do they get this idea? They're Jewish people. They came out of Russia, a lot of them. A lot of them came out of Germany. They had the idea of communism before there was communism, before it became, a type of government that killed its people off more than any other type of government in the history of the world. And so we end up with it here in the United States and places like, Hollywood. And so we shouldn't be surprised about that. Okay. Yeah, we've got a second battle group coming into Eastern Mediterranean. It's the USS Eisenhower battle group. We've also got a amphibious assault group in the Persian Gulf, and I've heard that we may have another amphibious assault group coming in to the area of the conflict between Israel and Palestine. That's all important information. And here's a little thing that came up today is, what is 2024 going to look like? Is it going to look like 2020, which is without the COVID, but with a world war, or maybe a hot war between the United States and Russia, for and on behalf of globalists, past royals, Europe or Asia or whoever, whatever? There's always somebody, right? When you're a superpower and you guarantee basically the borders of all these smaller countries and some type of a rule of law, everybody wants to knock you off your pedestal. And so that's kind of where we all are, and we have to recognize that as well. Mm-hmm. Or we're not going to be able to project ourselves into the future. Now, as far as being able to just collapse back in the United States and we'll be safe alone here in the United States, that's not the case. If we don't keep conflict down in the world, it will come here. We know that. So we're going to have to do some of that. We're going to have to maintain some lily pads. But it doesn't mean that we have to get involved with the internal politics of this mess. And that's about what I have today, Ellie. Yeah, it's been a busy weekend. We've got a whole bunch of new news that are started flooding in about 1 o'clock. I have been able to catch up with all of it.
Yeah.
We'll have a lot more for Wednesday on the World Report. I don't want to give it extra horsepower, Ellie.
Yeah.
So the World Report. Things could spiral out of hand pretty quick. Let's not count on it. Let's not count on it. We have to be realists for what things are. We really need to watch what's going on in the Senate so that they don't take the power away from the people in the House particularly. And we need to listen really closely with our ears to what our senators and House members say. It will tell you where they are in their beliefs and who's most important to them, whether it's Constitution, whether it's a global elite, or whether it's, money markets or whatever it is. We're going to be able to hear that from them right now because there's so much disruption in the world. That's a good thing to keep on our minds as we're listening and hearing news. There's that going on. And there's also this part I'd like to talk to you about is there's peaceniks all over the world that say we need to de-escalate. We need to de-escalate. That's true. We do need to de-escalate. But sometimes you need to escalate before you de-escalate, or the escalation happens over and over again, and over time, more lives are lost. And so it's a calculation of lives over time. And so when you're looking at things, you need to look at it from the populations and the number of lives lost over time. The point which you get the least amount of lives lost over time is really the best place to be. It's the only real moral place to be. All right. Thanks, Ellie. This is a wild weekend. I'm surprised that Israel hasn't jumped forward yet, but I think it'll happen soon. We hope everybody will, if you like what we're talking about, if you don't like what we're talking about, give us the thumb up or thumb down. If you have a comment, and I'll read through the question or the comments and try to make sure that we get them answered. Even if we don't today, we'll get them answered tomorrow. So, yeah. Just want to say, if you're listening to us out there and you're a human being, we're human beings too. We love you. We hope the world tomorrow is going to be a better place for you.
Mm-hmm.
And we hope that you'll get ahead of these situations before they get out of hand. And God bless everybody, right? See us Wednesday, and you can hear Ellie here tomorrow, same bat time, same bat channel. Thanks, guys. Thanks.